Bada bing, bada boom. Welcome back to the Best of 3 Network. Week one of Worlds to a Stage is over, and honestly, I think it's delivered absolutely. The new format is one of the best things to happen to League of Legends in, I think, the last 5 years or so. It's been so exciting, not only seeing the different matchups, but also getting really excited about the draws. And I think we have to tip our hats and say thank you, Mr. Ref, because week two, I think, looks amazing. It's going to be do or die for so many teams who, in the upper bracket, you win your match, that's it. You're through to quarterfinals, which is such a goal for, I think, a lot of the non-Eastern teams, or maybe even some of the lower, fourth place teams that are looking a bit shaky, should we say. And then on the lower side of the bracket, any loss, and that's it. Worlds is over for you. We now have two teams that have gone through and two teams that are out. I don't think anyone's surprised that Gen.G and JDG made it through. They just took care of business. Gen.G just looked clinical. JDG in particular, I would say, just looks like they're on a different level. LNG took them to 3 games again, once again, just taking them to the limit, but also, once again, losing. In that third game, it didn't look that close. I think last year JDG was one of the favorites, and they seem to have taken a step up, not just individually, but their team play is just impeccable, the way they move around the map. And they're such a threat, and it's very hard for me to see anyone beating them at this stage. On the lower side of the bracket, BDS is out. I don't think that's that surprising given that they were up against Damwon. Damwon just looked clinical, and BDS's playstyle relies so much on Adam and the way he either creates pressure or draws attention. But when you're just up against what is fundamentally a better team, what can you expect from them? They just kind of got outplayed in every lane, out macroed. It sucks, but they went down fighting, and that was fun to see. The surprising upset, GAM over Team Liquid. This is like absolutely wild. This series, 3 game series, really exciting. Unfortunately, I think we had some hope for Team Liquid after their first match against T1, which was somewhat close, but they just never reached that peak again. It just seemed to be downhill the whole way. And you could just see them mentally breaking underneath the pressure. I think they were making a lot of mistakes. I think they were starting to panic as they saw the game and world slip away from them. But on the other side, GAM, that region continues its run of upsetting worlds for someone. And this year it is NA, and good for them. I think not a perfect run. They've had some tough opponents, but they've fought every single step of the way. They've given us exciting matches. It's a great showing from them, and I think that's really cool. Next week's matches, I think they are really, really interesting. I already said this. Obviously, it's do or die. Everything is best-of-3 at the moment now. So it's going to kick off with the lower bracket. So we have Cloud9 against Fnatic, and then Mad Lions against Weibo. Super, super fun matches. So Cloud9 Fnatic, obviously, this is just like an NAEU super fun series. Both teams have had one easy opponent, should we say, and one tough opponent. So Cloud9 beat Mad Lions, an easy opponent. They lost to LNG, and then they got dominated by T1. I think a lot of people had this hope that, oh, wow, T1 seems to be struggling. Cloud9 seems to tighten up their gameplay. I know we were quite positive, and my God, that was the most dominant win I think we've had at Worlds. It was really embarrassing for Cloud9. 15-0, nothing worked for them. They got absolutely destroyed. On the flip side, Fnatic ended up losing to LNG also. They beat GAM Esports, and then they lost to BLG. I think 2 losses there, not that surprising. I think we agree Fnatic is likely the second best team from EU, unless you're thinking it's mad. And Cloud9 is either the best or second best team from NA, and technically NRG is the number 1 seed. So this is a great grudge match. I think this is a perfect matchup. We're going to see essentially 2 opponents that I think are of similar skill level and that have played against similar skilled opponents to get to this point here. I'm really excited to see it. Personally, I think I have to give it to Fnatic. After that shellacking T1 gave Cloud9, it's really tough to see them kind of bounce back from that. I think they've had a pretty lackluster year throughout the year. I don't think Fudge is performing at the level he should be. M&S seems to crumble a little bit under pressure. Their macro hasn't, when we're looking at the LCS, was pretty lazy. and they weren't focusing on it. It seems to have gotten better as we got to Worlds, but I don't know. It's, is this one of those situations like TL where they had a peak and then they've dropped off after that? That's my impression there. And I think Fnatic has the opposite trajectory. They've just been getting better and better. They had a disastrous start to the year, disastrous second kind of split. And then they brought in Oscar Renin. They changed things around Noah. And they've just done better and better. And honestly, Oscar has been performing so well at Worlds. He's rookie, first time at Worlds, first time international competition. And I think he's been really taking it to a lot of the other top laners. Really great performance. I know some of the other tops have also been praising him. I think it's great to see. I also think Noah is not at his peak, but I also don't think we're getting playoff Noah. So he's doing pretty well. So overall, we have one team that is basically on an upward trajectory and the other one that is not. I am looking at this, look, I would 100% take Fnatic plus 1.5. I think that's an easy one. The odds are basically even here. So we have Cloud9 at a 1.84, Fnatic at a 1.97. So the fact that Fnatic is an underdog is pretty crazy. The plus 1.5 actually is pretty terrible, but I would take the money line on Fnatic. You could even sprinkle a little bit on the minus 1.5. I could see this being a 2-0 at 3.79. I think that's a really, really good line to take there. If you think it's definitely going to be a 3-game series, then I think the over 2.5 maps is a really good bet to take at a 1.95. And that kind of keeps it there, keeps it pretty straightforward and simple. That would be that match. Going on to the next one of the day, this is also just going to be a super banger because we have Mad Lions and Weibo. Both teams, I think, have been underperforming. We've seen a lot of guys like, I think Dom and Cadril and even Forest just crying about when does Weibo suddenly start performing. They've lost a lot of games that I think people expected them to win. Losing to KT, that looked very one-sided. They lost to G2, which was huge. Really happy that happened. They beat NRG, but what do you expect from that? I think this is going to be a Weibo match, but with the two styles of these comps, I'm super excited just to see how they match up. I think Mad Lions are just going to throw themselves at Weibo nonstop, and I think Weibo is going to meet them midway there, and we're going to have so many kills, and it's going to be so chaotic. It should be just super fun. I do think it's going to be a 2-0 for Weibo. I don't know the odds on that. Like the minus 1.5 is a 1.366. The under 2.5 maps is a 1.30. None of this is really good. So it's not really anything that I think is worth taking. And on top of that, I don't have the kill line. So I think you could take the kill handicaps on Weibo, but it is going to be tricky because it might be something like a minus 12.5, minus 13, and that's way too high. And I actually think that there is a chance that Mad Lions ends up keeping it close just by throwing bodies, and it doesn't reach that level of kill disparity. I would look at taking the overkills, though, for sure. If it's anywhere, if it's over 24.5, which the lines seem to be, I would jump on that instantly. I think that's such a good one. Anyway, that wraps up that day. I don't think I'm surprised with the predictions there. Then we go into the last match of the lower bracket and the first match of the upper bracket. So we have Damwon against Gam. Again, this is, at this point, I think you have to maybe take Gam because I have them at a 20.09 odds. I mean, Damwon's a 1.02. There's nothing here. There are no bets here. I think Damwon is just going to be clinical. I think they're going to outplay them. It's going to be one and dusted. Look, on the side of Mad Lions and Weibo, by the way, the individual map lines, you can get Mad Lions at a 5.67. I think it's going to be a 2-0, but do pay attention to draft because we've seen some pretty weird drafts coming out here. If you think and you really see a mismatched draft where Mad Lions has a way better draft, jump on that because the odds are just ridiculous. Just put a little amount on them. But I don't know if I can in good faith say, look, bet on Gab because I think this is where their world's run comes to an end. And then moving on, Now, first match of the upper bracket. This is super exciting. We have KT versus LNG. Now, for those of you that watched my tier list prior to Worlds, you can still see it. It's up on our channel. I have LNG and KT as the dark horses. I think very obviously JDG and Gen.G are the ones to win. I didn't think T1 really had a shot, even though they came back. And I think that KT looked great throughout the whole year. And their loss to T1 made a lot of people down on them. It seems like T1 is just KT's kryptonite. So I wouldn't really focus too much on that. I think that killed a lot of the hype and the momentum for them. Had they won that match, I think people would be really big on KT. I think KT is really kind of coming into their groove. Like the way they beat Weibo was pretty clinical. We thought it would be a much closer matchup. It really wasn't. It was very one-sided. And same with the way that they ended up beating Damwon. They lost to BLG. It was the first match of Worlds. I honestly think they've just looked better and better the whole way through the tournament. And they're starting to look like that LCK dark horse. And what I think I would, and I think actually categorically, it's just been shown they are the second best LCK team. Now the question is, can they beat the second best LPL team in LNG? LNG is the team that beat BLG. They're the team that has taken JDG to 5 games and 3 games so many times. They're so clearly just a little bit below JDG, but so great. This is the matchup. This is like, in my mind, we have JDG far and away number one. I think we have Gen.G second, and then what is that dark horse? Which team can take that special run and that can really just come together and win worlds? Because we basically never had a favorite win worlds. So if you discount JDG, if you discount Gen.G for those reasons, I think it's going to be one of these two teams that suddenly comes together. The meta works. The team just fires. They have a hot couple of games, and that's it. They win it. And I think, again, I said pre-bet, this was the team to look at. So this is going to be a super exciting match to watch, and I think it's going to really shake out like, okay, well, where are our rankings here? KT is the underdog at the 2.3 and LNG at a 1.63. I think this is pretty fair. I think it's a bit generous on KT side. I think this is like the odds are too much to be honest with you. Even on the maps, you have KT at a 2.13 and LNG at a 1.72. I think that's more in line because while I do think LNG is the better team, I don't think KT is that much worse. Both of the teams are pretty clinical. They have great AD carries. They have great mid laners. They tend to play a very controlled style of league and just at a very high level of the micro macro gameplay. And so I think this is going to be a really exciting matchup. Now, I would 100% jump on the over 2.5. That's a 1.88. I think that's a great bet. I really don't see this being a 2-0. I think that they both have a good read on the meta. I think they both have similar strengths. This is probably just going to be a back and forth there. In terms of the bets, I would do this match by match. It's a boring answer, but I really think this is the sort of matchup where you need to see the draft and you need to pick which side you think has the better draft and the easier comp to execute. And I think the odds are so good on both teams. Like I said, 1.72 on LNG, 2.13 on KT, that it's just you're gonna get good odds either way. So you should really just watch the draft, keep an eye out there, hop on Twitter, join our Discord. If you're in our Discord, we talk about the draft. We have a couple of guys running analytics. I say it every time. The link is just down below. We've been chatting loads. It's been super fun. So please come and join us there. That would be my bet there. Personally, who do I think is going to win? I think LNG is going to win. From what I've seen, I think they are just that much better, especially after seeing their gameplay against JDG. But I do really believe in KT, and I think they have the ability to upset. So we'll see what ends up happening there, but I'm leaning more towards LNG. Match after that is kicking off with an incredible match. NRG G2, number one team from NA, number one team from EU. We have like this underdog team in NA that has just been completely overlooked continually. by everyone, ourselves included. And we have G2, the powerhouse of Europe, who is really trying to break into that elite group of teams. And I think this is just going to be super exciting. Now, terms from a betting perspective, NRG is like a 5.26. It is. They are so low down. It's mad. G2 is a 1.16. So it's very clear that people expect G2 to win, and I do too. The bets are really hard. So again, it's a draft thing. Do you see a good draft on NRG? Because they had a really excellent draft and read against Team Liquid, and they executed it really well. So I think there's a real shot to that NRG does grab one of the maps. That's something you really want to jump on if that does happen. You could take the -1.5 on G2. It's a 1.64. I think that is a good enough value to take it, and I wouldn't be surprised if this does end up being a 2-0, mainly because G2 has just been the best team in Europe by a significant margin. And I think the worst teams in Europe have kind of matched up against NRG and Cloud9 and kept it competitive. And so I think that a team that is able to take care of the teams in Europe should be able to take care of any team really in NA, and that's G2. I think what's really interesting for me is looking at G2 and now asking the question, where do they rank globally? Because they have done really well so far. They've beaten two teams from the LPL and the LCK. So one team, sorry, I get two Eastern teams, one of which was Weibo, the other one was Damwon. So solid teams, fourth place teams, they beat them. Good wins. Shaky win the Weibo match. I think the best we've had at Worlds, one of the best matches I've seen. Super exciting, but nonetheless, they got the win at the end, and that's all that matters. They're clearly not the level of JDG, and they got pretty handily beaten by Gen.G, so not them. And I would then say that LNG is the team after that, and I don't think they're on the same level as LNG. What that leaves us with is KT and BLG, and then Damwon. I think Damwon is and T1. I don't think T1 looks good. I think we all agree with that. They're probably the weakest Eastern team. They might be turning it around after that win against Cloud9, but it's Cloud9, so who really knows? But the fact that they beat Weibo and they beat Damwon, I would say that they likely are cut above T1. I don't know, and I don't think they're better than KT. And I think that's where they're sitting. They're clearly not close to the top three teams in JDG, LNG, Gen.G. That's fine. I think they're in the same bracket, maybe a step below KT and BLG, but I think they might be able to compete with them. I think that's super exciting because they are somewhere in that 4 to 6. They might be the sixth place team at Worlds. They might be the fourth best team at Worlds. And I'm, as an EU fan, as a Western League fan, I'm actually pretty happy with that. The important thing now is for us to see how do they do in week 2. They lost to Gen.G. It's pretty one-sided. How do they learn from that? How do they adapt the draft? How do they adapt to the meta that's developing? And what lessons do they take to week 2? Because there's a real chance they're gonna make quarters. And well, I mean, actually, unless you think NRG is going to beat them, G2's in quarters. And so question there is like, okay, it's single elimination quarters, which sucks. Knockout stage is only single elimination. So, but if they get the good matchup against one of those teams, can they actually beat them? I think that's really exciting. Anyway, final match of the upper bracket, it's T1 versus BLG. And I think this is super exciting because whilst I would definitely rate BLG above Weibo, I think they are worse than LNG. T1 technically was the second best team from LCK. I put KT above them. They have had a shaky latter half of the year, very clearly. I think coming into Worlds, it's been pretty shaky. The question is, can they turn it around? Can they continue this T1 superpower storylines of they always make it through somehow? Can they do that? Or is BLG just going to clean up? My answer is BLG is going to clean up. Look, you have T1 at a 1.81. I don't know how they're the favorites given their performances. Yeah, okay, look, they completely destroyed Cloud9, but as we've said, it's NA, it's Cloud9. Cloud9 just didn't look good. BLG is a 2.0. I think that just like that money line is 100% worth taking. And I would even say that it's, looking at the -1.5 on BLG, it's a 3.92. That is so good. It is so good. We are talking about a team. BLG is not bad, by the way. BLG has had like a historic season in the LPL. And they were doing so well until they run into JDG, who no one can beat, by the way. It seems like if you go look at the match history between BLG and LNG and JDG, no one can beat JDG. They are just better than everyone in the LPL. So there's no shame in losing against them. And losing to LNG, I don't think there's a lot of shame there. They just lost to JDG. I think mentally it was rough. BLG is a really, really good team. And I think they would be the best team, basically, or at least competing as the best team in any other league. Or if you just took JDG out, I think the title would be going back and forth between LNG and BLG. So the fact that they're underdog odds is insane. So look, money line, 2.0 odds, jump on that straight away. -1.5, 3.92. I think that's just like a phenomenal bet to take. This just should be a really exciting matchup. We obviously have some big players and big names in the top lane. We have been in the top lane going up against Zeus. I think that's going to be really exciting. We have Gala versus Faker in the mid lane. We have Elk versus Guma in the bot lane. These are two teams that I think match up so nicely across the different roles. And I don't know, like, look, if T1 pulls it together and they pull off the win, then they're through, which is so many T1 fans want that. But also, if they lose, they have one more match. And that, there's a real chance maybe T1 doesn't make it through to knockouts, which would be insane. And I think would definitely confirm that this roster is going to change. I think it would raise a lot of questions in the org and kind of the greater conversations around T1 and their place. So anyway, look, it's 3 days. Swiss stage has been awesome. In a way, I don't want us to go out. I love the fact that we have all these great matchups. The randomness, I know some people have been upset about it, but I think it's given us some really interesting storylines. I've had so much fun watching this, and I really can't wait to see just how it plays out. Like, how do these, this is what we want at Worlds and what we've always said. We want international matchups, and we're getting it. We have, what, 4, I think of it? It's like KT, LNG, T1, BLG, NRG, G2, Cloud9, Fnatic, and then I guess Mad and Weibo. No disrespect there, but one of these is not like the others. But like, those are 4 matches I am so hyped to wait and see. And if you guys are hyped, please let us know. Our last couple of videos have been doing great. We really appreciate the support. Please comment. I love reading your comments. I love seeing your thoughts. Love replying to them. And if you want to talk league, come join our Discord. Really active there. Love going back and forth on it. And look, we can talk betting there. We can just talk pure league, gaming, whatever it is. It's a fun place. It's a cool place to be. And anyway, hope you guys are enjoying the new format. Hope you guys had a great week. Enjoy the next couple of days. It's going to be a long one, but once it comes back, it's going to come back with a bang. Bye, everyone.